Number 1. A Titanic Prophecy. Let's start with something that seems like it belongs in the realms of fiction, but it's very, very much true, creepily enough. In 1898, an author by the name of Morgan Robertson wrote a novel called Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan. It tells the story of a massive ocean liner called the Titan, which then hits an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sinks, killing most of its passengers aboard. Does this ring any bells? Sound familiar? Well, it should. The eerie part is that this book or novel was written 14 years before the sinking of the Titanic, making us all thoroughly creeped out. Now let's dive into the details. Pun intended. The similarities between the two ships are mind-blowing. Both were touted as unsinkable, and both were British-built, and both carried too few lifeboats for the number of passengers. But here's where it gets even stranger. The Titan was described as being 800 feet long, and the Titanic was 882 feet. The Titan struck an iceberg in the same spot, the North Atlantic, even at the same time of the year as the tragedy in the book even played out in April. Just like the real-life Titanic that sank on the 15th of April in 1912. So, how could Robertson have predicted all this in a book? Is it all just coincidence? Is he some kind of time traveler? Or does he have some ominous future-seeing powers? We don't know, but that's a rabbit hole for you to dive right into. I promise it won't hurt. Let's move on to the next one. Number 2. The Lightkeepers of Flannan Isle. Next, we head to a cold, remote island outside of Scotland called Flannan Isle. I hope I can pronounce that even a little correct. Either way, there, a very weird and chilling mystery unfolded in December 1900. And what happened? You may ask, and I will tell you. 3 men, whole men, the entire men, just up and vanished, disappeared, leaving behind them only a lighthouse and no trace of where they went. The lighthouse itself was fully operational, and the weather had been relatively calm, so there was no immediate reason for them to leave. And what makes this case so strange is the peculiar circumstances of their disappearance. The last log entry from one of the keepers described a violent storm, but the weather reports from nearby areas showed nothing unusual. The keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald MacArthur, had been alone for days, yet no one saw them leave, and no distress signals were sent. When finally a relief vessel arrived to check on them, they found the lighthouse was fully stocked, but of course the men were gone. There were no signs of a struggle, and one of the keeper's chairs was found overturned, suggesting something abrupt had occurred. Some theories include a rogue wave that swept them away, or even supernatural causes. But the most unsettling possibility, that something from inside of the lighthouse was the reason. Perhaps a fight, some strange unknown force, led to their demise. And then their disappearance too. So yeah, for more than a century, these three men's disappearance has remained one of the strangest unsolved maritime mysteries. A rabbit hole for you. But now, let's move on to the next one. Number 3. The English sweating sickness. Where did it come from? Where did it go? That is a question as old as time, but it also works well with this entry. We're traveling to the 1600s in England, where an epidemic that just came from nowhere swept through the land at terrifying speed. It got known as the sweating sickness because, well, you would sweat a lot and quickly. Like, you would just wake up, sweat, and that was that. And it was unlike any disease known to man at that time, which says a lot because there were many weird diseases going on. Victims of the disease would suddenly wake up or just out of nowhere experience a chill, followed by extreme sweating, fatigue, and high fever. And then, just within hours, they would be rejected from their life subscription. Just like that. The symptoms were strange, and the course of the illness was so rapid that there was little time for doctors to intervene, and absolutely no one could figure out the cause. The disease struck with frightening regularity, killing thousands across multiple outbreaks in 1485, 1506, 1517, and 1528. But then, just as suddenly as it arrived, it disappeared. One moment it was just there, freaking everyone out, and then suddenly gone. And it never returned again, thankfully. Despite many theories about it, historians have been trying to figure out what the heck happened here. From bacterial infections to something in the environment, water, the true cause of this sweating sickness remains one of history, or like medical history's most frustrating mysteries. Was it a very unknown virus, a new strain of the plague, or something else entirely? Your guess is as good as mine. Welcome to the rabbit hole. Let's move on to the next. Number 4. The Lost Colony of Rowanoke. In the year of 1587, a group of English settlers landed on Roanoke Island, off the coast of what is now North Carolina. There they established a colony and left behind them a small outpost. But when a supply ship arrived 3 years later, they found nothing. They found the colony completely abandoned. The only clue left behind was a word, Croatoan, carved into a post, leading some to suggest, of course, that the settlers had been demised by some native tribes. But a closer look raises more questions than answers. Why would they leave behind a perfectly good settlement? Why carve Croatoan to the post when there were other tribes nearby? Some have theorized that they assimilated with the local Croatoan tribe, but no solid evidence has ever been found. Other theories include mutiny, disease, or even supernatural aliens or something like that could have wiped them out. The enduring mystery of the missing Roanoke colony has inspired countless theories, books, TV shows, and what have you. There's a lot of it. But even so, to this day, the fate of the lost colony remains unsolved. You know the drill. A rabbit hole for you. Now let's move on to the next one. Number 5. Caspar Hower, the enigma of Nuremberg. One of the absolute strangest cases from history involves a young man called Caspar Hower. In the year of 1828, Hower appeared in Nuremberg, Germany, with no memory of his past and no idea who he was. He was about 16 years old, but his behavior suggested he had been isolated for most of his life. He could barely speak and was completely unversed in normal social interactions. The only things that Caspar was able to articulate was, "I want to be a knight as my father was," or the word horse. If he was asked any other questions, he would only cry and say, "I don't know." He further claimed to have spent his childhood locked in a dark cell, and after being freed, he had no knowledge of the world around him. And as a little twist, the mystery deepened even further when Caspar was found unalived 5 years later, stabbed in the chest by an unknown assailant. And as you can guess, many questions arose from the whole ordeal. Was he the heir to some noble family that wanted to just hide him? Hidden away to prevent his succession or something? Or, on the other hand, was he simply just an imposter seeking fame for some reason? Some impoverished poor young boy trying his best to get ahead in the world by doing this strange, concocted plan. Or even, maybe even a victim to some kind of sinister plan. Did someone actually lock a poor boy up in their dungeon and he escaped? Quite frankly, I don't think we'll ever know. But if you want to read more about it, get into that rabbit hole if you want. So, and now, next one and the last one for this episode. Number 6. The Man in the Iron Mask. The story of the Man in the Iron Mask has captivated people for centuries, and it's actually true. This was a very mysterious prisoner who spent an immense amount of time in solitary confinement during the reign of Louis XVI of France. He was said to always wear a mask either out of iron or some say satin or some kind of fabric, but the main point was no one was able to actually see his face. Many theories have swirled around this mysterious figure, with the most popular suggesting that he was the twin brother of Louis himself, imprisoned to prevent him from claiming the throne. Other theories include that he was a disgraced nobleman or a foreign prince, but his true identity remains unknown to this day. What makes this mystery even more intriguing is that Louis never once revealed who the man was, and the details of his imprisonment were kept under wraps for years. So, what do you think? Could he have been a royal prisoner of real noble blood, maybe even royal blood? Or was there something much darker behind it? Or maybe even political schemes, stuff like that happened all the time, as it does today. And don't we know it?
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just...
Number 1. The Hinterk family massacre. Germany. A remote farm and a household of 6. And a crime so horrifying it left investigators and even us today speechless. The family consisted of Andreas Gruber, age 63, his wife Cecilia Gruber, age 72, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, age 35, and Victoria's children Cecilia, age 7, and baby Joseph, just 2. And also included was a very new addition to the household, a new maid called Maria Baumgartner, age 44, who had actually just started working on the day of the massacre. In the days leading up to the crime, the family reported hearing footsteps in the attic, their keys mysteriously disappearing, even strange footprints in the snow that led up to the farm, but never away. Even an unfamiliar newspaper appearing suddenly on their property. And then, one day, one by one, they were lured into the barn, where a pickaxe ended their lives in swift, brutal strokes. Most of the bodies would later be found there, stacked on top of each other under piles of hay. Inside the living quarters, baby Joseph was found bludgeoned in his crib, and the new maid was in her bedchamber, similarly denied life and hidden under a blanket. But the most chilling part? The killer didn't even flee. They stayed there for a few days, feeding the farm animals, making themselves meals and keeping the house warm. Even the dog was spared and left alive. Neighbors saw it roaming the farm, whimpering but untouched. Did the person responsible of cancelling all these life subscriptions have some kind of pang of compassion for this poor dog? I doubt it, considering this next fact. The youngest daughter, little Cecilia, was found in the barn with clumps of her own hair in her hands, evidence that she remained alive for hours after the brutal attack, tearing at her scalp in agony before succumbing to her wounds. That was just a short introduction into all this. There's way much more to get into. That's a rabbit hole for you to jump straight into. But yeah, still to this day, it remains an exceptionally gruesome mystery. Number 2. The Shroud of Turin. An ancient cloth, a ghostly image, and centuries of debate. The Shroud of Turin is said to bear the faint imprint of a man's face and body, believed to be by many Jesus Christus himself. But is it actually a holy relic or an elaborate medieval hoax? A question truly made to cause divide. Carbon dating, that's a thing that people do. And they did that on the fabric, and it was conducted in 1988, and it placed the the fabric's origin between 1260 and 1390, suggesting indeed that it was a very clever forgery, because Jesus Christus was not alive at all by then. However, critics of the dating argue that the sample was taken from a repaired section of the cloth, skewing the results. The shroud survived a fiery blaze in 1532, emerging only with burn marks and some water stains, yet the image remained eerily intact. Adding to this intrigue, the image on the shroud has signs that resemble a photographic negative, a phenomenon not understood until centuries after its supposed creation. How could medieval forgers achieve such a feat? Some suggest that the image was created by a burst of radiation or even some alchemist's mischief. The more we dig, the murkier it all gets. Miracle or plain mystery? You decide after you go into that little rabbit hole. Next one. Number 3. The Princess in the Tower.
Shit's all fucked up! Don't forget to like and subscribe!
2 young princes and heirs to the English throne vanished without a trace under the protection of their uncle, Richard III. Sounds kinda like a grim fairy tale, yeah? But this was very real indeed. Their disappearance has haunted historians for centuries. In 1483, the young King Edward V, only 12 years at the time, and his younger brother, 9-year-old Richard, Duke of York, were locked up in the Tower of London, supposedly for their own safety, but after Richard III claimed the crown, the boys were never seen again. Were they just unceremoniously yeeted off this mortal coil by their ambitious uncle? Or did someone else entirely have a hand in their mysterious fate? Some point the finger at Duke of Buckingham or even Henry VII, who had much to gain from their disappearance. Fast forward a little bit to 1674, when the skeletal remains of 2 children were found beneath a staircase in the tower. But to this day, no one can say for certain if they actually belonged to the princess. And then we fast forward even longer to present modern times in 2012, when Richard III's body was found buried under a parking lot. This discovery reignited debates about his role in the prince's fate. Adding even more fuel to the fire, the boys' mother, Elizabeth Woodville, who is described to have reacted with lamentable shrieks that made all the house ring. She struck her breast, tore and cut her hair at hearing the news of her son's demises. Suddenly, mysteriously, withdrew her accusations against Richard. Was she threatened into doing so, or did she know something we, centuries later, don't? So yeah, this remains as an enduring mystery, locked in the Tower of London's cold stone walls, and a rabbit hole for you to dive into. Moving on. Number 4. The Mary Celeste. A ghost ship just adrift in the Atlantic, a crew completely vanished as if plucked from existence. Yeah, the Mary Celeste was found in 1872. Perfectly seaworthy, cargo intact, but not a single soul aboard. What happened here? The ship's lifeboat was missing, and its crew of 10, including the captain, his wife, and their very young daughter. But the cargo of industrial alcohol was untouched, and there were no signs of a struggle. There was enough provision left to last for another few months, at least. Also, the captain's log ended abruptly, offering no clues. Theories about this are very many, there are plenty, of course, yeah. And they range from pirate attacks to sea quakes or even aliens. Of course, we can't have mysteries without some aliens thrown in there. Another bizarre theory suggests that the crew abandoned the ship super quickly due to the fumes coming from the alcohol cargo because they feared an explosion. Many theories, no explanation there. The crew's personal belongings were all left behind, including valuables and even unfinished breakfast. So, what did we have here? Some very dumb pirates who weren't able to gather the valuables, just scaring off the crew? Sea monsters? Or something even stranger? Whatever happened, the ocean keeps its secrets. And those secrets, well, you know the drill. Those are a rabbit hole for you to jump straight on into. Into our last mystery. Number 5. The Disappearance of Agatha Christie. You'd expect a mystery novelist to know how to disappear. And yeah, Agatha Christie's vanishing act in 1926 still boggles the mind. For 11 full days, she was indeed missing, sparking a nationwide manhunt. Her car was found abandoned near a shark quarry, with an expired driver's license and clothes inside. And after those 11 days, when she finally reappeared at a hotel under an assumed name, she claimed to have no memory of what happened. Some believe that she just suffered some kind of stress-induced amnesia after a mental breakdown triggered by her mother's demise and her husband's infidelity. And on that note, others think that it was a cleverly staged publicity stunt to embarrass her cheating spouse, especially since she checked into the hotel using the name of his mistress. Even a certain Sir Arthur Conan Doyle inserted himself into this whole shabacle. He somehow procured one of Agatha Christie's gloves and took that to a medium in a bizarre attempt to find her while she was still lost through spiritual means. How fun, how quaint, how lovely. Why did she do all that? Well, the Queen of Crime took this secret to the grave and opened up another rabbit hole for you to just dive straight into. Good luck. And there we have them. 5 mysteries and strange occurrences from our dark past. Just jump into those rabbit holes. I promise it won't hurt. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, all that to help with the algo boosting. Yay! And giant thanks to my heroes, my Patreon members and my YouTube members. You're the reason I'm able to keep this channel running. It's all thanks to you. You're amazing. And with that, stay hydrated, stay even more amazing, but most of all, stay morbid, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye!